Welcome to the City Center Podcast. I'm Jerry Marcello. The cultural identity of a city can often be traced back to its historic architecture. An old neighborhood preserves a community's soul, a snapshot of when life was a little slower and things were a little bit more meaningful. Today, we'll meet the people who run the city's historic preservation program. We'll see how homes become considered historic and how a city on the move like West Palm Beach is working to remember its past. That's next on the City Center Podcast. And joining us today is Anthony Mendez and Jordan Hodges, both city historic preservation planners for the city of West Palm Beach. Gentlemen, welcome.
Certainly.
Great to be here, Jerry.
It's a pleasure.
We're glad to have you. Listen, let's start at the very basic level. What exactly do you guys do, and what does preservation planning mean?
Yes, of course. So our definition of historic preservation is the maintenance and preservation of our resources that have historic significance. And how that ties into our section is actually through the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, which was started in the late 1850s. So they were a prominent feminist grassroots movement, and they were successful in preserving the home of our former first President George Washington. And since the 1850s, there's been a plethora of historic preservation laws and policies that have been enforced. One of the most important is the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, and through one of its federally mandated amendments was the implementation of a certified local government program. And what that did was that allowed local municipalities to create their own historic preservation ordinance. And so for the city of West Palm Beach, our city historic preservation ordinance was adopted in 1990, and that created staff to work in tandem with their planning and zoning departments to essentially preserve and protect our city's historic preservation resources.
Let's see. So
yeah.
you guys are part of the city, your city staff.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with that in mind, in the creation of this program, and I had no idea it extended so far back.
Yes.
So people were aware that homes of historic importance were very important to protect and to keep in place. Why do you think that is? Why is it so important to hold on to older homes?
Yeah, I would say within the specific context of West Palm Beach, if you know anything, we've experienced a proliferating amount of development over the past 20 to 30 years.
Certainly, yeah.
But some of the contemporary planning issues that may arise from that, such as gentrification, tend to occur when we demolish, some of our historic properties. So I would say that that's, one of the reasons as to why there's, a section why, having a historic preservation section is so important to a city. There's this sort of false dichotomy that can occur between historic preservation and the sort of proliferating amount of development we've been experiencing in the city, when really it's through our robust system that these two can, sort of go in tandem, and historic preservation can act as a catalyst to creating, sustainable development within the city.
Gotcha.
Sure. And to kind of
go ahead.
piggyback off of what Anthony was saying, the Preservation Act of 1966. So if you think back to that time period, it was during the Johnson administration, coming off of the Kennedy and Eisenhower administrations. And those were really kind of transformational periods of America's built environment, right? You had the interstate highway system, massive federal works projects happening kind of from coast to coast, impacting all of our cities. So the Preservation Act of 66 really kind of compelled the federal government to take into consideration, if you're demolishing these swaths of what is that doing on the local level? So that spurred a lot of kind of grassroots preservation, and we're kind of still in the midst of that today.
Right. Jordan, you're relatively new to the city, and have you been around the area for a long period of time, or are you new to the area?
Yeah. So I moved to West Palm Beach in 2016. So I've been a downtown resident for almost a decade.
Okay.
But prior to joining the city of West Palm Beach, I ran the City of Lake Worth's historic preservation program for about 5 years. And then I worked for the town of Palm Beach for 2 years, staffed to their landmarks board and to their architectural commission.
West Palm Beach is, I believe, if my history is correct, one of the very oldest cities in the county.
Yeah.
What impact does that have to the kind of homes that you see here, as opposed to, say, Lake Worth or Lantana or even north to Jupiter and those areas?
Sure. So, we developed very early, Palm Beach and West Palm Beach as a result of Flagler's Railroad as it came down. So we have we have a period of significance here that is the Florida land boom of the 1920s. So that's where you get, Mediterranean revivals, our frame vernaculars. We have some Queen Anne, some like craftsman bungalows, really early development of the 20th century that you don't find everywhere. So that's certainly, in our catalog of historic properties in our register that, we certainly strive to protect.
Basic question: how many homes do we have on the register?
That's actually a question that Anthony and I are going to try to find the answer to.
It's unknown.
Yeah, well, unknown to us. We're both relatively new. We
Sure.
do have the register, but we're going to do some kind of in-depth analysis of that. But we do have, what are we at?
We have 19 historic districts and 46 individually designated historic properties currently.
So it's a large program,
Yeah,
one of
very
the
large.
largest in Florida.
Right, very cool. I had no idea there were 19 different districts.
Yes.
Is there a place that I could see what areas are which districts are which?
Yeah, so we have, if you visit our historic preservation site or the kind of planning and zoning website,
Sure.
there are interactive GIS maps, or you can do paper maps of all of the district boundaries.
So you could go to the city website at WPB.org, go to the planning department perhaps, and then go ahead and find the information there. Oh, that's very cool. Okay, so say if I am moving to West Palm Beach, and one of the homes that I'm really looking at, that I'm really excited about, is already deemed an historic home. What does that mean to me as a new homeowner or a buyer? What can I do and what I can't do?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So being locally listed and having that local historic designation does provide you with some property protections. It ultimately depends on what you intend to do with your property. There are some things that are under our purview that we could review, as staff. There are some things that are a little bit more substantial that require Historic Preservation Board approval. And there are some things and some requests that are, not even under our purview. So you could paint your house whatever color you would like. That's not part of our Historic Preservation Ordinance.
Okay.
Same thing with interior work. That's also not something that we regulate as Historic Preservation section.
So if I want to change the tiles in the house or something, inside the home.
Inside,
Rock
absolutely.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. But if I want to add an addition, or I want to change the overall structure in some way,
That comes under our purview.
Yeah, so that would, anytime you're doing a project that affects the exterior of your home, there is a level of design review that happens, whether that's, you submit an application, a building permit, and Anthony and I are able to review that administratively and sign off on your permit. Some larger projects, certainly new construction, major additions, things that would really kind of change the style of your home, those would need to be reviewed by our Historic Preservation Board.
The job of the board is to basically protect the historical integrity of the home and the neighborhood.
That's correct.
Yes, and that is one of the tenets of our Historic Preservation Ordinance, and part of the Certified Local Government Program is to have a Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, I see. So if once again you're sort of walking through, say I do want to make a change, I want to upgrade the garage or change the garage or do something to that effect. The process then is I would go ahead and I'll probably get in touch with you guys through. Yeah,
That's what we like to see.
we like to see people come to you as opposed to doing it themselves.
You're exactly right. So if you're a resident or a business owner in the historic districts, Anthony and I will be your best friends, right?
Yeah.
So we're your liaison to the board. We'll give you advice. It's part of our job to be super knowledgeable about, building practices, to have good relationships with our design community here. And we're really lucky in West Palm Beach to have a really terrific design community, architects, engineers, interiors professionals, so that we can kind of guide you through. right? So, if you're wanting to do those exterior changes, you and your design professional would get a hold of myself or Anthony, and we would kind of advise you on your application. And again, tell you what we could do at staff, or if you would need to go to the board, and we'll walk you through that process.
Now, the actual meetings, we do record them and we make them available. We also show them live on TV 18 and on streaming. We see that some of the discussions will get to a very fine level of points and minutia. I use that in a positive way. So you're looking at very close details. There are people who would say to you, "Wow, you're arguing over the color of the window frames." Is there a time where it becomes almost too detailed, or is it really important to be that detailed all the time?
So that's really that's a balancing act that all historic preservation staff and all boards do, regardless of community, right? So we have to find that kind of happy middle ground of what's most important for the community. There are depending on what architectural style you have, depending on what kind of addition you're doing, details are important. They kind of convey the story of the home, the time period in which it was built. So I would say that having that in the review scope, those details, is important. We just try not to get too hung up on
Too
things.
hung up.
Yeah.
Smart. Okay. Another question I have is, we have some historic buildings that are not private in nature. They're commercial, like the Harvey building, the Como building.
Sure.
Do they fall under your control as well? So if they want to make a change to that building, they got to come to you.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Most of West Palm Beach's designated resources are residential in our residential neighborhoods. But we do have commercial districts, and then we have individually designated commercial buildings.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
So they can't come and knock the Harvey building down.
Oh no,
No.
and especially not without a permit. So.
Nothing without a permit.
You have to
Nothing
come
without
through
a
us.
permit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, all right, we've talked about that, and we've talked a little bit about the process if someone wants to expand or make some changes. Obviously, we have a wide range of different types of styles that we have here in West Palm Beach. Do you all have one that is the one that you'd like to try to preserve the most? Is there one that you're like, oh, we only have 3 of these, we need to keep an eye on it, or is it more generic when you?
I would say it's a little bit more generic. I mean, we do have a wide, sort of hodgepodge of some styles. Our most prominent styles are Mission Revival, Mediterranean Revival.
We have a lot of post-war.
Post-war.
I think we each have our personal favorite styles.
Exactly. We try not to get too biased.
I appreciate you guys are clearly not biased, but just out of curiosity, what are your favorite styles?
I'm a deco fan.
You like
I
that?
have to concur with Jordan. I'm a deco fan.
It
as
was
well.
just, it kind of turned the architectural world on its head,
Right, right.
everything that came before it. And it's interesting to see how it developed, in Miami Beach, which is kind of the, pinnacle of the Art Deco, and then how it kind of went up the coast. My favorite architectural styles are ones that blended styles together, and that happened at there's a couple buildings here in West Palm Beach where you were leaving the 20s in Mediterranean Revival, and then you're switching into Art Deco in the early 30s. And there's a couple, I call them Deco-Terranean buildings, where the body is done as an Art Deco building, but they have barrel tile roofs. And, it's such an interesting spot in history that those buildings kind of represent.
Now, there are many homes in West Palm Beach which will push into the 50s and maybe the early 60s. Are those open for becoming considered to be historical properties?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them are already designated. So the Department of Interior, National Park Service, they provide a 50-year benchmark to be designated as historic, which doesn't sound like a long time. But if you think about, the life of a house,
Right.
What are you doing after 50 years? You're replacing a lot, right? So to catch them early before there's been too many alterations to it is important in historic preservation.
Okay, so aside all the regulatory things that are taking place to help protect the home, what are some of the benefits and incentives that we are giving the people who have homes that have historic designations?
Sure, that's a great question. So we have quite a few things kind of in our pocket. The first of which is a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption. And how that kind of works is, if we have a property owner who's proposing improvements to their home, maybe an addition, it is an agreement between the city and Palm Beach County to where those kind of eligible improvements, once they're done, the city and the county will postpone the increase in their property taxes as a result of that scope of work for a period of 10 years. So, and it's transferable with the property. We have a lot of people that take advantage of that, and it's really kind of led to some substantial savings for people doing projects. Another incentive would be for properties that are in FEMA flood zones. So in our floodplain ordinance, when this is a requirement by FEMA, that anytime a property in a flood zone is increasing the value of their home by up to 50% of its assessed value, they are required to bring their floor level up to current requirements. That can be enormously expensive, and a lot of the times just results in the demolition of the home because raising a building is just so intensive and so expensive. But historic properties are the only properties which are exempt from that application. So, that's a very personal decision. If you're going to be investing that much money into your home where it may be flood prone, you might want to raise it. But being a historic property gives you the option to maybe forego doing that while still being able to do your improvements.
I saw we were talking earlier about the fact that the part of the process of getting a home adjusted or changed is to go in front of the board. Let's talk a little bit about the preparations that you guys have to go through to get ready to go in front of the board. What sort of planning is involved? What do the homeowners need to be doing?
So we typically would require a pre-application meeting with Jordan and I. Our goal is to get you on the best path forward and give you the best sort of guidance. We give you the application requirements, and you submit those application requirements. We prepare our staff report, our agenda. We have an agenda review with both our chair and our attorney. And so, ultimately, that's what goes on. It's more of a cyclical basis. We typically meet every month, every fourth Tuesday, typically at 4:30 p.m. in the commission chambers.
Yeah, and those are shown live on
Yes.
TV 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just kind of, piggyback on what Anthony said, but if you have a project that rises in scope to the point where the board is going to review it, we always recommend that you meet with us in person, or we'll do a Zoom or a Teams meeting, just to make sure that we're all on the same footing, to make sure that we know exactly what it is you're trying to achieve, and we can maybe recommend a way to achieve that you hadn't come up with. So we try to be super accommodating.
Are you seeing a trend in West Palm Beach? Maybe it's beyond the scope of your perspective, but are you seeing a trend in West Palm Beach where homes that were in the 60s and 70s are knockdowns more than being preserved?
I can't say that in West Palm Beach yet. But in previous communities that I've worked for, yes.
Yeah. I live in the northern part of the county, and sometimes I see that same thing where homes that are, absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
But they're being knocked down for the property. The land is what's more valuable to the next owner than the structure itself. It's great to see that West Palm Beach is pushing towards preserving these older homes. It's part of the culture. It's part of our personality. And that's terrific to see.
And I'll say, we talked about the Florida land boom of the 1920s a little bit. We have a second period of significance that we recognize here, which is the post-war housing boom. So, GI Bill, lots of these little kind of masonry houses on tight lots. A lot of those are already designated in several neighborhoods. But if you think about the 1920s land boom, the post-war land boom, we might be in another one right now. So thinking down the road, what are we building today that is going to be
of historical significance
in 50 years?
50 years. That's fascinating. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. This is an opportunity for you guys to take a moment and talk to folks who are probably not really familiar with what you guys do and what you're trying to do. What message would you have if someone walks up and says, what's your message? What do you want to tell folks about what we're doing here as far as preserving homes?
And I think I sort of harkened on this earlier,
Yeah.
but historic preservation can work in tandem with the type of development that we've been experiencing here in the city, and can certainly serve as a catalyst to the sustainable development that we've been experiencing here. It can certainly, drive that sustainable development, can stimulate economies. So, I mean, it's certainly not like an impediment, so to speak,
Yeah.
between what we've, sort of been experiencing here.
Yeah, and I would kind of piggyback off that. A lot of people, when they hear historic designation, they think, oh, you can't do anything to that building. That's just not the case. We're a pretty development friendly city, right? And we see infill additions and alterations to properties in the historic districts almost every month at the Historic Preservation Board. So we in no way want to kind of stop or halt development. It's just ensuring that development and those changes to our historic buildings are compatible with the neighborhoods, because when you designate districts, it's the feeling of the whole neighborhood that is really important. It outweighs any one single property.
And I guess the another question, just to touch base again, because we touched about it a little bit earlier, folks who are interested in learning more about the programs and what happens and what's available, the city website, WPB.org, and I believe it's the planning department will have that information. That's fantastic. Well, okay, guys, Jordan, Anthony, thank you so much for the time that you've given us today, and thank you for what you're doing to the city. Preserving our history is preserving our personality, our culture, and what you're doing is very, very important.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
And thank you for joining us. The City Center podcast is launching its second full year of video podcasts, and we've got a lot in store for 2026. So feel free to follow or subscribe to get the latest from the city of West Palm Beach. This has been a production of the City of West Palm Beach Communications Department. I'm Jerry Marcello. We'll see you next time.